They dragged my suitcase out onto the manicured front lawn, scattering my clothes like unwanted confetti, while their laughter echoed through the affluent neighborhood. My adopted millionaire family, the people who were supposed to cherish me, were humiliating me in the most public way imaginable. The sting of betrayal was almost unbearable. Then, as if orchestrated, a pristine white limousine, impossibly long, glided to a stop directly in front of our ostentatious mansion. A man emerged, impeccable in a groom's suit that gleamed in the sunlight, clutching a wedding dress. In the blink of an eye, everything I thought I knew was about to change. What you're about to hear sounds like something straight out of a movie, completely outlandish. This is my story, and even now, years later, I still struggle to believe it actually happened to me. My name is Rachel, and this is the day my life was catapulted from a living nightmare into a fairy tale, in a way I never could have foreseen. Let me rewind the clock. I was a wide-eyed 7-year-old when George and Margaret Hamilton, titans of the real estate world, decided to adopt me. They were dripping in wealth, their mansion a sprawling monument to their success, ripped straight from the pages of Architectural Digest. I remember feeling like I'd won the lottery. I was the luckiest girl in the world. They already had 2 biological children, Sophia, a calculating 9-year-old with a sharp tongue, and Brandon, a mischievous 5-year-old who got away with everything. On the surface, we were the picture-perfect family. We graced charity galas in designer gowns, smiled for society page photographers, and the Hamilton name was whispered with reverence in every corner of town. But here's the harsh truth about perfect families. They're usually the ones concealing the darkest, most twisted secrets. By the time I turned 16, the rose-colored glasses had shattered. I finally understood the chilling reason behind my adoption. It wasn't out of love or a genuine desire to give a child a home. It was all for show. I was a prop, a carefully curated addition to their philanthropic facade. The charitable millionaires who rescued an orphan, the headlines screamed. It boosted their public image, opened doors in high society, and painted them as modern-day saints. But behind the imposing gates of the mansion, I was treated like unpaid help, a live-in servant disguised as a daughter. Sophia received a new designer wardrobe every season, while I was relegated to her cast-offs, clothes that were often worn and outdated. Brandon received a gleaming sports car the moment he turned 18, while I received a condescending lecture about being grateful for the roof over my head. I toiled away at the family company, buried under mountains of paperwork and managing their chaotic schedules, but I was never compensated fairly. Whenever I dared to broach the subject of a real salary, Margaret would fix me with that chilling smile and say, "We gave you a home, Rachel. Isn't that payment enough?" Desperate for some semblance of independence, I started secretly tutoring kids in the neighborhood, hoarding every dollar I earned in a battered piggy bank. I knew I couldn't stay in that gilded cage forever, but I felt trapped, paralyzed by fear and uncertainty. That house, with all its suffocating opulence, was all I had known for 21 years. Then, 3 months ago, the carefully constructed facade of the Hamilton Empire began to crumble. George had made a series of disastrous investments, and the family company was hemorrhaging money at an alarming rate. I knew because I was the one who handled the books, the one they trusted to clean up their messes. One evening, they summoned an emergency family meeting in the grand living room, a space usually reserved for impressing important guests. I walked in to find a stranger sitting in my father's favorite armchair, a man I'd never seen before. He was older, maybe 65, with slicked-back silver hair and a smile that sent shivers down my spine. His name was Lawrence Sterling, and he was a renowned, albeit ruthless, investor. George wasted no time with pleasantries. "Lawrence has agreed to invest $50 million in our company," he announced. His eyes locked on me with an unreadable expression. "In exchange, Rachel, you'll marry him." I actually laughed. I genuinely thought it was some kind of sick joke, but the stony silence that followed confirmed my worst fears. Margaret leaned forward, her voice dripping with false concern. "This will save our family, Rachel. Lawrence is a highly respected businessman. You'll want for nothing." Lawrence leered at me, his gaze predatory, like I was a prized possession he was considering acquiring. "She'll do nicely," he said, his voice thick with an oily charm that made me want to vomit. I stood up, my hands trembling with a mixture of anger and disgust. "No, absolutely not. I'm not for sale." The room went silent, the air thick with tension. George's face flushed a dangerous shade of red. Sophia smirked from the plush velvet couch, as if she were watching her favorite reality show, completely detached from the unfolding drama. Brandon, ever the opportunist, started recording everything on his phone, eager to capture the spectacle for his social media followers. "You ungrateful little—" George started, but I cut him off, my voice shaking but resolute. "I'm not ungrateful. I'm a human being, not a business transaction." That's when I made my second mistake, or perhaps the bravest decision of my life. Fueled by years of suppressed rage, I blurted out the truth I'd been carefully guarding for 6 months. "I'm already in a relationship anyway. His name is Adrian, and he actually loves me. Not my name, not my connections, just me." The explosion that followed was nuclear. Sophia erupted in a fit of cruel laughter. "Adrian? That broke barista from the coffee shop where you waste your time? Oh my God! This is priceless." Margaret's hand lashed out with lightning speed. The stinging slap echoed through the cavernous room, and my cheek burned with the force of it. "You'll ruin everything we've built." George stood up, his voice dangerously quiet. "You have 1 hour, Rachel. Marry Lawrence or get out of this house." I touched my throbbing cheek and looked at each of them. These people who I'd called family for 21 years. These people who never saw me as anything more than a prop in their perfect, manufactured life. "I'd rather have nothing than be bought like this," I said, my voice laced with defiance. Brandon laughed, still filming. "This is going straight to my story. Everyone needs to see this." I turned and walked toward the grand staircase, intending to pack my few meager belongings. I naively thought they'd at least allow me to leave with some semblance of dignity. Couldn't have been more wrong. I'd barely started stuffing clothes into my battered suitcase when they stormed into my room. A furious mob fueled by greed and resentment. All of them. Sophia started ripping clothes from the closet, her face contorted with rage. "These were mine anyway," she screamed, throwing dresses onto the floor like unwanted garbage. "You think you own anything in this house?" Brandon grabbed my suitcase and, before I could react, hurled it out the window. I heard it crash onto the manicured front lawn 2 stories below, the sound a sickening thud that echoed my own despair. Margaret's voice was shrill and piercing. "Everyone needs to see what happens to ungrateful children." George was already on his phone, his voice dripping with malice. I heard him calling neighbors, staff, even some of their high society friends. "Come by the house. There's quite a show happening." They dragged me down the stairs, their grip relentless. I tried to pull away, but George's grip on my arm was like a vice. When we reached the front door, he shoved me outside into the bright, unforgiving afternoon sun. It was a beautiful day, ironically. Clear blue sky, warm sunshine, birds singing in the ancient oak trees, the kind of day that should have been perfect. Instead, it became the most humiliating, soul-crushing moment of my life. They started throwing my belongings onto the lawn, piece by piece, each item a painful reminder of my wasted years. Books, clothes, photos, shoes, everything scattered across the perfectly manicured grass like a twisted yard sale of my discarded life. Neighbors started gathering, drawn by the commotion and the promise of scandal. I saw our housekeeper, Mrs. Chen, standing near the gate, tears streaming down her face, but she was powerless to intervene. The gardener stood frozen with his rake, his eyes wide with disbelief. People from neighboring mansions strolled over, phones out, recording everything with morbid fascination. Sophia stood on the front steps, striking a dramatic pose like she was giving a press conference. She refused to help the family, she announced, her voice dripping with self-righteous indignation. After everything we gave her, she's too selfish to do one simple thing. Brandon, never one to miss an opportunity for self-promotion, posted updates to his social media in real time. "Our charity case thinks she's too good for us," he wrote. Watch this ungrateful show. That's when Lawrence Sterling's sleek black car pulled up to the curb. He stepped out, adjusted his expensive suit, and smirked at me, his eyes filled with cold satisfaction. Shame, Rachel. You would have had a very comfortable life. Now look at you. The laughter was the worst part. They were all laughing. A chorus of cruel, mocking sounds that seemed to penetrate my very bones. George, Margaret, Sophia, Brandon. Even some of the neighbors who'd always smiled so sweetly at me before, now reveled in my misfortune. I stood there in the middle of my scattered life, humiliated and utterly broken. Margaret's voice carried across the lawn, sharp and vindictive. You'll never survive without us, Rachel. You're nothing without the Hamilton name. My hands were shaking so violently, I almost dropped my phone, but I managed to pull it out and dial the one number I knew would answer. The one voice that offered me a flicker of hope in this desolate landscape. Adrian picked up on the first ring. Rachel, what's wrong? His voice was laced with genuine concern, and that almost broke me completely. I need you, I whispered, struggling to keep the tears at bay in front of this jeering crowd. They threw me out. I have nowhere to go. His voice changed instantly, the gentle warmth replaced by a steely resolve. It went from caring to commanding in a heartbeat. I'm 10 minutes away. Don't move. Do you hear me? Just hold on, Rachel. I don't know what to do, Adrian. I sobbed. Trust me, he said, his voice firm and reassuring. Just hold on. I'm coming. The call ended abruptly, and before I could even begin to process what had just happened, Sophia snatched the phone from my hand, her eyes gleaming with malicious glee. Calling your poor little boyfriend? What's he going to do? Take a bus here? Maybe he can help you carry your garbage bags? More laughter erupted, sharper and more cruel than before. I closed my eyes and wished with all my might that the ground would open up and swallow me whole, that I could simply disappear from this nightmare. The crowd was still mocking me, still taking photos and videos, eager to capture every moment of my public downfall, when I heard it. The low rumble of powerful engines in the distance, growing louder with each passing second. Everyone stopped talking, their attention drawn to the approaching sound. A pristine white stretch limousine, impossibly long and gleaming, turned onto our street, its presence completely out of place in our reserved, wealthy neighborhood. But it wasn't alone. Behind it was a convoy of 6 luxury cars, each one more opulent than the last. Rolls-Royces, Bentleys, and Mercedes sedans moved with the precision and authority of a presidential motorcade, smooth and powerful, and absolutely impossible to ignore. The noise died down completely, replaced by an awed silence. Even Sophia, the queen of sarcasm, was momentarily silenced, her laughter cut short mid-sentence. Margaret grabbed George's arm, her eyes wide with a mixture of confusion and apprehension. Who is that? The limousine stopped directly in front of our mansion, right in the middle of my scattered belongings, a stark contrast between my broken life and their extravagant display of wealth. The cars behind it formed a perfect line, their polished surfaces reflecting the stunned faces of the onlookers. Chauffeurs in crisp uniforms jumped out and opened doors with practiced efficiency, but everyone's gaze was riveted on the limousine, waiting to see who would emerge. The driver rushed to open the back door, and my heart stopped in my chest. Adrian stepped out, and I didn't recognize him at first. He was transformed, radiating an aura of power and confidence I'd never witnessed before. He was wearing a complete groom's outfit, an absolutely stunning white designer suit with intricate gold embroidery that caught the sunlight and made him seem almost otherworldly. It looked like something a prince would wear, regal and impossibly elegant. But what made me gasp, what stole my breath and left me trembling, was what he was carrying in his hands. A wedding dress, a breathtakingly gorgeous champagne-colored gown, covered in crystals that shimmered like 1,000 diamonds, catching the light and throwing off a dazzling display of brilliance. He walked straight toward me, his eyes locked on mine, unwavering and intense, completely ignoring the gaping mouths and the stunned silence of the crowd. Adrian? I whispered, my voice barely audible, completely confused. What's happening? Behind me, I heard Sophia's voice, high-pitched and panicked. Wait, that can't be. George was frantically pulling out his phone, his hands shaking so badly he could barely dial the number. I heard Brandon swear under his breath, a string of incoherent curses that revealed his utter disbelief. Adrian stopped right in front of me and, to my absolute shock and bewilderment, got down on one knee, right there on the lawn, surrounded by my scattered belongings and the judging eyes of the neighborhood. "Rachel," he said, his voice clear and strong, resonating with a sincerity that cut through the noise and chaos. "I'm sorry I didn't tell you everything. My full name is Adrian Westbrook." The collective gasp from the crowd was instantaneous. I heard multiple phones clatter to the ground as people struggled to process the information. Brandon's voice cracked, barely above a whisper. "Adrian Westbrook, CEO of Westbrook International? That's $4. 8 billion. I stared at Adrian, my mind reeling, unable to comprehend the magnitude of what was happening. Westbrook International. I'd heard that name before. Everyone had. It was one of the largest and most influential investment firms in the entire country, a powerhouse of wealth and influence. And Adrian, the kind, unassuming barista who made me laugh, was at the helm. Margaret actually stumbled backward, her face ashen. George's face had gone completely white, his eyes wide with a mixture of shock and horror. Adrian took my hand in his touch warm and reassuring. "I loved that you never once asked me what I did for a living. I loved that you insisted on splitting the coffee shop bills with me. I loved that you judged me on how I treated the waitress, not what car I drove. You saw me, Rachel, the real me." He held up the wedding dress, the champagne fabric shimmering in the afternoon sun. It was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen, a symbol of hope and a promise of a brighter future. I was planning to propose next month. I had this whole elaborate thing planned, a private beach at sunset, musicians, the works. But then I got your call, and I heard the pain in your voice, and I realized something. His eyes were fierce now, burning with a passion that ignited a spark of hope within me. "You don't need a perfect moment, Rachel. You need to know that you're valued. You need to know that someone sees how priceless you are." He pulled out a ring box from his pocket, and when he opened it, I heard several people gasp in unison. The diamond was huge, a brilliant blue that seemed to capture the essence of the sky itself, radiating an otherworldly light. "Rachel, marry me right now, right here. Let them see who you really are. Not someone who can be bought or sold or thrown away. Priceless, irreplaceable, mine if you'll have me." Tears were streaming down my face, a mixture of relief, joy, and utter disbelief. "Adrian, I don't understand." He cupped my face in his hands, his eyes searching mine with an intensity that took my breath away. "Do you love me?" he asked simply. "Yes," I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. "Then do you trust me?" "Yes," I replied without hesitation. "Then marry me right here, on this street. Show them that you don't need their name, their money, or their approval. Show them that real love doesn't calculate worth in dollars." My voice was shaking, but my heart was resolute. "Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes." He slid the ring onto my finger, and it fit perfectly, as if it had been made just for me. Of course it did. Adrian never did anything halfway. The neighborhood erupted in cheers. Neighbors who had been watching my humiliation just moments before now started clapping and cheering, their faces flushed with excitement. Mrs. Chun was openly weeping, her tears of sorrow replaced by tears of joy. Even the mailman who had just arrived, drawn by the commotion, started applauding enthusiastically. But the Hamilton family, they stood frozen in place, their mouths agape, their faces a mixture of shock, horror, and utter disbelief. Adrian helped me to my feet and kissed me softly, a tender, reassuring touch that sealed our fate. "Mrs. Westbrook," he whispered against my lips. "How does that sound?" "Perfect," I whispered back, my heart soaring. "It sounds perfect." What happened next was like something out of a movie. a carefully orchestrated scene that unfolded with breathtaking precision. The doors of those 6 luxury cars opened, and people started emerging as if this was all choreographed, because apparently it was. A wedding planner in an immaculate suit appeared with a whole team of assistants, their movements efficient and discreet. Makeup artists and hairstylists surrounded me with gentle hands and warm smiles, their presence a soothing balm to my frayed nerves. A photographer and videographer started setting up professional equipment, capturing every moment of this surreal spectacle. And then, an elegant older woman stepped out of one of the Bentleys and walked straight toward me, her eyes radiating warmth and kindness. "Rachel," she said warmly, pulling me into a hug. "I'm Catherine, Adrian's mother. Welcome to the family, darling. My son has told me so much about you." An older gentleman appeared beside her, his eyes filled with genuine affection. "Adrian's father, Jonathan. We're honored to finally meet the woman who captured our son's heart." I was completely overwhelmed, struggling to grasp the reality of the situation. "I don't understand. How is all this happening?" Catherine smiled, her eyes twinkling with amusement. "When Adrian loves, he loves completely, without reservation. He's been planning this for weeks, just waiting for the right moment. When you called today, he mobilized everything. A crew was setting up right on the street, their movements swift and efficient. They rolled out a pristine white carpet over my scattered belongings, transforming the scene of my humiliation into a makeshift aisle. Elaborate flower arrangements appeared as if by magic, bursting with roses, lilies, and orchids in shades of white, champagne, and gold. A string quartet emerged from one of the cars and started playing soft, beautiful music, filling the air with a melody that seemed to echo the joy in my heart. The makeup artist gently guided me behind a designer privacy screen that had been set up on the lawn, a sanctuary of calm amidst the chaos. "Let's make you the most beautiful bride," she said kindly, her touch soothing and reassuring. 20 minutes later, I emerged in that breathtaking dress Adrian had been holding, the champagne fabric shimmering in the sunlight. It fit like it was made for me because I later learned it was. Adrian had somehow gotten my measurements and had this custom designed weeks ago, a testament to his unwavering love and commitment. The champagne fabric hugged my curves in all the right places, and the crystals caught every ray of sunlight, creating a dazzling display of brilliance. My hair was styled in soft, romantic waves, framing my face perfectly. My makeup was flawless but natural, enhancing my features without masking my personality. And when I looked in the mirror they held up, I didn't recognize myself. I looked like a bride. I looked happy. I looked free. The crowd of neighbors had multiplied, their initial shock replaced by a sense of awe and wonder. The entire street was lined with people now, all watching with phones and cameras, eager to capture this extraordinary moment. This was unprecedented in our wealthy, reserved neighborhood, a complete disruption of the status quo. But I didn't care anymore. Margaret tried to approach me as I stepped out from behind the screen, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Rachel, darling, perhaps we should talk inside. This is all very sudden." A man in a dark suit, one of Adrian's security detail, stepped between us smoothly, his expression impassive. "The family has been asked to maintain their distance." George tried a different approach, walking toward Adrian with his hand extended and that fake smile he used for business deals, the one that never reached his eyes. "Mr. Westbrook, I'm George Hamilton, Rachel's father. Perhaps we could discuss a business partnership." Adrian's expression went ice cold, hardening into a mask of utter disdain. It was a look I'd never seen on him before, and it was terrifying in its intensity. "You're the man who threw his daughter on the lawn like garbage. You tried to sell her to that predator for $50 million. I don't do business with people like you. I don't even acknowledge people like you." George's face flushed red, but he stepped back, intimidated by Adrian's unwavering gaze. A minister appeared, young, warm, and radiating sincerity, ready to officiate the ceremony. Adrian had thought of everything. The ceremony began right there on that street, in the bright afternoon sunshine, surrounded by flowers, music, and genuine smiles from Adrian's family, and the strangers who had become witnesses to our extraordinary love story. The minister's words washed over me like a dream, a soothing balm to my wounded soul. But when it came time for our vows, Adrian's voice was steady and clear, filled with a depth of emotion that resonated within me. Rachel, you deserved a palace, but I'm giving you this moment instead. Right here, where they tried to break you, I want you to rise. You are the strongest, kindest, most genuine person I've ever met. You're going to be an amazing wife, and I promise to spend every day proving that you made the right choice. Saying yes. My turn. I took a shaky breath, trying to compose myself in the face of such overwhelming emotion. Adrian, 6 months ago, you ordered the worst coffee combination I'd ever heard, and you laughed when I told you so. You came back every day, and we talked about books and dreams and stupid TV shows. You never once tried to impress me with money or status. You gave me something these people never could. Real love, real respect, real partnership. I can't believe this is happening, but I've never been more sure of anything. I love you. I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss your bride. Adrian pulled me close and kissed me. A deep, passionate kiss that sealed our vows and erased the pain of the past. We were the only two people in the world, lost in our own private universe. Flower petals rained down from above, a cascade of vibrant colors that fluttered around us like confetti. Someone on Adrian's team was throwing them from a nearby rooftop, adding a touch of whimsy to the already surreal scene. The crowd erupted in cheers and applause, their joy contagious. Camera flashes went off like fireworks, capturing every moment of this extraordinary celebration. When we broke apart, Adrian turned to face the Hamilton family, who were still standing on their front steps, looking completely shell-shocked. Sophia was screaming, her face contorted with rage and envy. This was supposed to be my moment. I was supposed to marry rich. This isn't fair. Brandon was frantically trying to delete his earlier social media posts, but it was too late. The video of my humiliation had already been shared thousands of times, and now people were filming the wedding, creating a story with a very different ending, a story of triumph and resilience. Lawrence Sterling was trying to slip away unnoticed, slinking toward his car like a defeated villain, but Adrian wasn't done. Adrian pulled out his phone and made a call right there in front of everyone, his voice carrying clearly in the afternoon air, commanding attention. Yes, Jonathan, it's me. Cancel the Sterling investment deal with Hamilton Real Estate. Immediately send out a press release stating that Westbrook International finds the Hamilton family's business practices incompatible with our ethical standards. George's face went from red to white in seconds, his expression pleading. No, please. You can't. Adrian wasn't finished. Also, I want you to make an offer to buy out Hamilton Real Estate. Offer 30 cents on the dollar. They're desperate enough they'll accept within a week. Margaret actually collapsed onto the front steps, hyperventilating. Sophia rushed to her side, shooting venomous looks in our direction. Adrian turned to George, his expression calm but absolutely ruthless. You wanted $50 million to save your company? You just lost $200 million in company value. By tomorrow morning, every investor in the city will know what you tried to do. By next week, you'll be lucky to keep this house. He looked at Margaret, who was sobbing uncontrollably. You told Rachel she was nothing without your name. Let me tell you something, Mrs. Hamilton. That girl tutored kids for $2 an hour and saved enough to survive because she's resourceful and strong. My wife doesn't need you. She never did. But you needed her kindness, her work, her image, and you threw it all away. Brandon tried to speak up, his voice cracking with desperation. Dude, I'm sorry. I was just joking around. Adrian cut him off, his voice dripping with disdain. You filmed a woman's humiliation for entertainment. You're trending right now, Brandon. The whole world is watching. How does it feel? Sophia made one last desperate attempt, smoothing her hair and approaching Adrian with what she probably thought was a seductive smile. Adrian, clearly there's been a misunderstanding. Maybe we could talk privately. He didn't even look at her, his gaze fixed on me. Security, please escort these people inside their house. They're disturbing my wedding reception. Adrian's security team gently but firmly ushered the Hamilton family back toward their front door, their faces a mixture of shame and resentment. George was on his phone, desperately calling people, pleading for help. Margaret was still crying, her sobs echoing in the afternoon air. Sophia was screaming insults, her voice shrill and desperate. Brandon looked like he might be sick, his face pale and clammy. Adrian turned to me and took both my hands in his eyes filled with love and concern. "Ready to go home, Mrs. Westbrook?" I looked at my scattered belongings still strewn across the lawn, mixed now with flower petals and the pristine white carpet. 21 years of my life, laid bare for all the world to see. I walked over slowly and picked up just one thing, a small framed photo of 7-year-old me on my first day with the Hamilton family. I was smiling in that picture, hopeful and innocent, completely unaware of the heartbreak that lay ahead. I left everything else behind. I took Adrian's hand and walked toward the limousine, ready to embrace my new life. "I'm ready," I said, my voice filled with a newfound confidence. We walked to the limousine together, hand in hand, while the entire neighborhood cheered. Mrs. Chun was openly weeping, her tears of happiness a testament to the power of love and redemption. The mailman whistled, giving us a thumbs up. Someone started throwing more flower petals behind us, creating a colorful trail in our wake. I could hear Sophia's voice, shrill and desperate, fading into the distance. "This isn't over. You can't just..." I looked back one last time at that imposing mansion, at those people who had pretended to be my family, who had treated me with such cruelty and disdain. George was screaming into his phone, his face contorted with rage. Margaret had her head in her hands, her body racked with sobs. Sophia looked like she wanted to murder someone, her eyes burning with hatred. Brandon was reading comments on his viral video, his face getting paler by the second. I felt nothing, no anger, no sadness, just a profound sense of freedom. "I forgive you," I said quietly, knowing they probably couldn't hear me over the noise. "But I'll never forget what you showed me about who you really are." Adrian helped me into the limousine, his touch gentle and reassuring. The door closed, muffling the chaos outside, creating a sense of peace and tranquility within. Inside, the limousine was quiet, cool, and luxurious, a sanctuary from the storm. Champagne waited in an ice bucket, its bubbles shimmering in the soft light. Soft music played, creating a soothing ambience. Adrian's parents were in another car, giving us privacy, allowing us to savor this moment of quiet triumph. As we drove away, I watched through the tinted windows as the Hamilton family stood in the ruins of their reputation, surrounded by my scattered belongings and their scattered dignity. Adrian pulled me close, his arm around my shoulders. "Are you okay?" I thought about it for a moment, reflecting on everything that had just transpired, the pain, the humiliation, the extraordinary turn of events. And then, a genuine smile spread across my face. "You know what? I really am." "Good," he said, his eyes twinkling with amusement. "Because I actually do have a beach wedding planned for next month. This was just the warm-up." I laughed, a genuine, heartfelt laugh that resonated from the depths of my soul. For the first time in months, I felt truly happy, truly free. That was 8 months ago. Adrian and I did have that beach wedding, just as he had promised. It was intimate, beautiful, and surrounded by family and real friends, people who loved and supported us unconditionally. It was everything I'd ever dreamed of and more. The Hamilton real estate company collapsed within 3 months, just as Adrian had predicted. George and Margaret lost the mansion, the symbol of their wealth and power. It was bought by a young family with adopted children, which I found beautifully ironic, a karmic twist that brought a sense of closure. Sophia works retail now at a department store in the city. I saw her once from a distance, her face etched with weariness, her eyes lacking the spark of ambition she once possessed. She looked tired, defeated, a stark contrast to the glamorous socialite she once pretended to be. Brandon's video haunts him to this day. He can't get a job anywhere because when employers search his name, that humiliating video comes up first, a constant reminder of his cruelty and lack of judgment. Lawrence Sterling got investigated for some shady business practices, and his other investments quickly fell apart. His reputation was ruined, and he faded into obscurity, a cautionary tale of greed and arrogance. And me? I'm living my best life, happier than I ever thought possible, with a man who saw my worth when I had nothing, who loved me for who I was, not for what I could offer. Adrian introduced me to his world, a world of wealth and privilege, but he also supported me in building my own, encouraging me to pursue my passions and make a difference in the world. I started a non-profit organization for adopted children and foster kids, providing them with resources, support, and a sense of belonging. I make sure they know their value isn't determined by the families they're placed with, that they are worthy of love and respect, regardless of their circumstances. The Hamiltons send cards now. Birthday cards, Christmas cards, apologetic cards, filled with hollow words and insincere regrets. I return every single one unopened, a silent message that some bridges, once burned, should stay that way. If the story gave you chills, if it made you feel something, I hope you'll share it. Share it with anyone who's ever been underestimated, undervalued, or thrown away by people who should have loved them. Comment below if you've ever had to walk away from a toxic family, if you've ever had to choose yourself over their expectations. Tell me your story. I read every single comment, and I find strength and inspiration in your resilience. And remember this, your value doesn't decrease based on someone's inability to see your worth. Never let anyone treat you like you're less than extraordinary. The people who are meant to be in your life will see your light, even when you're standing in your darkest moment. Thanks for listening to my story. And if you're going through something akin to that is in motion as we speak, so please, bear with me momentarily. Your chariot, that luxurious limousine you've been anticipating, could very well be mere moments away, perhaps just beyond the bend, ready to whisk you away to your destination in unparalleled comfort and style.